It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Today is Friday, 11/8. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate those of you who are joining us live, streaming on our website, as well as listening into our other broadcasts. You know, we are at a crisis, a constitutional crisis, a societal crisis, a crisis in governance. And that should never be more apparent to America than the president's statement yesterday that he was sorry that people are losing their health care insurance, but stopped short of admitting that he misrepresented and purposely, willfully lied to America, not as an act of omission, but as an act of commission. And that puts things in an entirely different light. We're going to talk a little bit about that issue. And I want America to understand the depths of the deprivation of this man and his administration, who would willfully, willingly, intentionally lie to America in an effort to utilize a Cloward and Piven strategy that really has at its core not the benefit of all of America getting health care, but as the true intent, which is an attack upon our nation. And this is one way to get a significant percentage and perspective of the nation under control and command. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our second topic is going to be the Russian and Chinese sharks that are circling the United States of America. And the American press is unwilling to talk about this because with it comes the obvious investigative journalism that would be required to say, why is it that we are bleeding here in the water? What is wrong with America that we have, for all intents and purposes, capitulated to? We are the wounded animal. And the truth of the matter is that when you look at the United States in that perspective, you have to recognize that it's the first law of nature. The weak get taken down first. And Obama and a long line of traitors before him, and mark my words now, he is not the traitor. He is the last in a long line, a long historic line of traitors that have weakened our nation so that we are like that gazelle with the broken leg that's trying to run away from the lions, and we're the one that gets left behind by the herd. So now the wolves and the sharks are circling. They smell blood in the water. Putin and China are openly quantifying what they perceive to be our weakness. China, despite all that's hidden from you by the Ministry of Propaganda, openly wrote, and I posted this up on our Facebook, I did an entire show about it, got a lot of pushback from some guy on YouTube who's a Chinese national. I got to tell you, you can try to cover this all you want, but China is licking its chops and slavering at the saliva is dripping off of its fangs at the concept of getting to the rich resources that this nation has. And mark my words, this nation is under dire exigent threat. All right, our third segment is the Benghazi missiles that are flooding the Middle East. You know, Benghazi was all about missiles. I said that from the very, very beginning. There is a lot more to this than meets the eye. That is why we cannot get answers. That is why we cannot get testimony from the people who were there. That is why CIA people and people in the spec ops community are being given monthly and bi-monthly or twice monthly lie detector tests and polygraph tests, and they are being made to sign non-disclosure agreements. Their names are being changed. They're being moved around the country. Folks, this is classically fascistic dictatorial rule that is going on. And the press is giving this administration all the cover it needs to continue down that pipe. Our fourth and last segment is going to be good gangster, bad gangster. Basically, we live in Thugland, USA. And the NSA is one of the consigliaries for this particular administration. We're going to talk about that because there's an article out from one of the representatives. He's actually the guy who is truly classified as the guy who really invented the internet, not Al Gore. And he has made some very, very interesting statements, and I want to go over them with you because it's for real what he's talking about. What he's saying is that, you know, governments must differentiate themselves from and have to live by their principles. In other words, in fact, here's his quote. Any democratic country has to take the high road. It has to live by its principles. I'm very sympathetic to attempts to increase security against organized crime. But you have to distinguish yourself from the criminal. Boom. All right. Let's get into our first topic, because I got to tell you, Obama has come out yesterday, and on NBC News, I'm sorry for Americans that are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me. Ladies and gentlemen, if you consider that an apology, you really have drank way too much Kool-Aid. I mean, look, the president lied to us again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and I can keep on going. He promised, gave assurances to America that everyone would be able to keep their existing insurance no matter what. His phrase, not mine. No matter what. He knew all along with full knowledge, and he sat there and he lied to the American people with malice aforethought. This was a lie of commission, not a lie of omission. He did not forget to give us details. He willfully, knowingly lied. He committed a lie. And that's a big difference. Well, I have to tell you, if you consider, I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me, to be an apology and to be a get-out-of-jail-free card for this guy, then you are far deeper in the brown-nosed territory than I've ever anticipated that you would be. He goes on to say, we've got to work hard to make sure that they know we hear them, and we are going to do everything we can to deal with folks who find themselves in a tough position as a consequence of this. What does that mean? A more nebulous, smoke-filled statement you could not find. I mean, okay, so you're going to work hard to make sure that we know you hear us. That doesn't offer a solution. That doesn't give anybody any idea that there's going to be a resolution to the problem of the guy who's losing his insurance and losing access to his doctor when he's got chronic diabetes and his feet are falling off. That's no assurance to the people who are scheduled to go in for surgery, and they find suddenly that not only is their doctor not covered, but their hospital that they were planning and had pre-arranged and done all the screenings for is not going to take them anymore. How is that going to help the boy whose father is prepared to go in and have a kidney removed to give to his son? And suddenly they find that their doctors are no longer participating in the plan that they've been allocated to. And that the hospital that they were planning on going to, where dad was going to lay in one bed and boy was going to lay in another bed, and dad was going to willingly slice himself open and remove a portion of his organs and give them to his child. And that hospital says, you're no longer welcome here. This is beyond an apology. This is grounds and level for impeachment. And I'm going to tell you something. If the House refuses to do so, America, I'm telling you right now, this needs to be resolved. This falls under the high crime and misdemeanor category, and an impeachment should begin immediately. If the House takes up immigration over impeachment process, every one of them should be charged with treason against the American people and the citizens and constituents that they serve, allegedly serve. But mark my words, you'll hear nothing of this. You'll hear nothing about it because the House has no integrity. They have no objectivity. They are completely compromised. They are so far down the road of corruption and coercion and that it is impossible for them to really, truly sit down and evaluate what they should do to truly represent this country. I'm going to tell you something right now. You will not even hear impeachment coming out of the mainstream media and Ministry of Propaganda. That talk has already been clamped down upon. You mark my words. You know how I know? Because we haven't already heard it. We haven't heard it. The word impeachment should be on the lips of every journalist, every anchor on every news program. It should be the headline of every op-ed piece. It should be on the words of every editorial piece in every newspaper in the nation. If this had been any other president, it would be the only talk about anything. Obamacare and the word Obamacare would only be mentioned in conjunction with the word impeachment. But that's not where we are. That's not where we are. Where we are is a far different place. Where we are is some foreign land where not a single one of us understands the rules. Where gravity doesn't exist. Where everything that you've ever known was upside down. If that doesn't tell you everything that you need to know about how far down the rabbit hole of Alice's Wonderland or Obama's Wonderland we have fallen, it's beyond my ability to understand why America will not rise up as a collective national massive civilly disobedient group, organized. I mean, it doesn't even have to be organized. A march on Washington that doesn't just march there for the weekend, but marches there with the commitment to sit there and demand that every representative, every person in every office, every representative or every person in the executive chain of command, they all must leave. I know the O'Reillys in the world out there, the Hannitys in the world out there, they'd say, that's crazy talk. Okay. Don't listen to me. I get it. I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. It's all right. The Laura Ingrams of the world, the MSNBCs, the ABCs. He's an extremist. He's an anarchist. No, I'm not an anarchist. I believe in government. I just believe that government is something that we should run, not something that runs us. I believe that Americans shouldn't live in fear of their government. I believe that the war on terror should not be a war that Americans have to fight against their own government. And mark my words, this is terror. This is the use of domestic terrorism perpetrated on the American people by their own nation, their own national government. Obamacare is not a failure. I've said this 1,000 times. It's a wildly successful project. This is exactly what this administration is looking for. It's not a train wreck. The GOP there is no objectivity left in them. They can sit there and cry foul all they want. But meanwhile, they cry foul to the camera, and as soon as the camera's off, they walk over and shake hands with the people that hold their leash. This is the equivalent of a national government who is holding its own citizens hostage with a suicide vest. This administration is seeking to be the final runner in a long, long race. But this is a race that is a relay race. It's not a race where everybody starts at the same line and they all run down and whoever gets to the finish line first wins. This is a relay race where everyone starts at the first line and they race forward, and at the 100-yard mark, they hand off the torch to the next one. And what you have is the number one kicker, the sprinter, who is now running the final dash. His name is Obama. The guy who ran up to him before, that was George Bush. The guy before that was Bill Clinton. The guy before that was George Bush Sr. And I can keep going. If you want to know where the root of this starts, you can go back to 1900. For the last 105 or 110 years, this nation has been under an assault by domestic terrorists operating in a suit, declaring themselves unilateral kings. Our society is being destroyed, and it all comes down to one thing. The graduated, they knew long ago that they could not turn around and institute tyranny in the United States and turn us into, for all intents and purposes, a fascist dictatorship or a socialistic nation or a communist. Doesn't matter. Pick your ism. It doesn't make any difference. They're all the same. They're all the same to you because every one of them stands for one thing: authoritarian totalitarianism. And the truth of the matter is, to the tens of millions of Americans, to the 100 million Americans who will end up under the thumb of these tyrants, it's not going to make 1 ounce of difference what ism or what word precedes ism. This is not a train wreck. This is not a mistake. This is a willful, strategic move. And the President of the United States of America is nothing more than a homicide bomber. That's strong language. I mean it to be. This is the implementation of the Marxist ideology, combined with a man who is willfully intent on the utter and complete destruction of everything that this nation has stood for. The jobs are disappearing. The IRS is a weapon of mass destruction. The economy is bleeding out. Americans are broke. Our society is in disarray. The Pentagon reports that sexual assaults in the Army are up 46%, and Claire McCaskill says this is a good start. What? The middle class has become utterly and totally dependent upon the government. The lower class, the low-income people in the United States of America, they're beyond dependent. They are willfully licking the boot of the hand that feeds. The upper middle class is slowly but surely and completely oblivious to their own observation, is being dragged down to the position of peasantry. The country is being nationalized, whether we talk about student loans or health care. The Fed is growing rich and fat, building up debt they know can never be paid back. We're so far down the rabbit hole, people. That light at the top of the rabbit hole is barely a pinprick. It's like trying to look at a star 100 million light years away. I got to tell you, the GOP, they're no salvation to you. They are working hand in hand with this administration for your active participatory enslavement. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. The ground that we transgress upon now is unmarked by human footprints. We're in territory that no place in the world has ever gone. Utilizing the power and the authority of the NSA, the IRS, the healthcare industry, the Federal Reserve, the black ops money that is spent in the trillions of dollars to wage a war against its own nation. The level of surveillance that is accomplished will make targeting those people who are dissenters so easy. I don't fear for our nation. I weep for the dead who haven't died yet. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to tackle this Russian and Chinese, the Russian and Chinese sharks who are swimming about us, flailing in the water, mortally wounded as a result of this man's and previous administrations' constant destruction of the pillars of liberty and freedom and strength. They say strength is projected over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Bunk. Strength is projected when you stand unified against the planet. George Washington told us repeatedly, avoid these deep, incestuous relationships with foreign governments. Stand alone. Be your own man. Be your own nation. Be an island. Not cut off from, not a desert island, cut off from all civilization, but be an island and a pillar of strength and sovereignty. And look at us. We'll be right back. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can find all of our videos at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be right back. We're returning. You know, I did a show last week, or 2 weeks ago, about how the Chinese have published openly in a series of articles in all of their major state-owned media publications. Not one, not two, 5. They've published their plans and their projections for how the U.S. could fall to nuclear war. Let me tell you something. That's only the tip of the iceberg. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Putin came out and warns that the NATO missile pact is over or endangered, and that he warns his military to, quote, prepare for war. EU Times. It's an article from the EU Times. I'll post it in the comments or in the description section of the YouTube channel. It's up on our Facebook and our website. Their Ministry of Defense is publishing or circulating a. This is in the Kremlin now, right? This is a report that is making its way through the Kremlin. And they are literally being told by their executive offices, and Putin's at the head of that, to prepare for war. The media in the United States of America absolutely refuses to talk about this. Putin canceled a presidential order that had set up a group to look at and figure out different ways to establish a working cooperation with NATO in the sphere of missile defense, or in the area of missile defense. Do you remember the comment from President Obama to Medvedev, who was the predecessor to Putin, in which he said, after my next election, I'll have more flexibility? The people who actually watch the international drama play out, they see it. They smell it. They probably can't believe what they see, but it's there. This Ministry of Defense report states that Putin's, quote, move for peace against the U.S.-led NATO alliance is made to show the West that he will retaliate in force, quote unquote, against what he calls President Obama's, and this is his quote now, insane plan for global tyranny. Last week, if you're not aware of it, they ran a nuclear missile drill in which they fired off 4 nuclear missiles. Now, this was a drill, so they, I'm assuming they weren't live missiles, but they launched 4 nuclear missiles. All of it was monitored by U.S. intelligence agencies, and the 2 of them were intercontinental, or ICBMs, and 2 of them were submarine-launched ballistic missiles. If you don't smell and see that for what it is, this was no drill. This was a show, a flexing of muscle. He's also ordered 2 of their strategic nuclear bombers that are visiting South America right now. He's telling them to stay on indefinite patrol because they may be needed to strike the United States. China issued a very, very clear, with maps, right on the front page headlines of all of their state-run media, their plans for a proactive strike, nuclear strike, on the United States of America. That is an overt threat. America is mortally wounded, flailing about in the water, bleeding out, and the sharks are beginning to circle. Got to ask you, if the United States were to, or the planet, because of a failure of the United States economy and the dollar, and we know that China is actively working to make the yuan the world's reserve currency. We know that Russia and China collectively are part of the BRICS nations. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And there are many others that are getting on board, including Australia and a bunch of other countries, New Zealand. They're trying to unseat the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And now OPEC, and I shouldn't say OPEC, Saudi Arabia has broken off diplomatic relations with the United States of America over Syria and other issues. So the petrodollar, which is the agreement that the United States has with Saudi Arabia to protect their monarchies in exchange for all OPEC countries demanding payment only in U.S. dollars. In other words, everyone's got to convert their currency to the U.S. dollar, props up the dollar as the world reserve currency. Now, with diplomatic ties ended, our enemies are literally showing up in droves. In the event of a financial collapse, and at $17 trillion and more borrowing going on, I mean, these guys are so out of control, and $17 trillion is only the tip of the iceberg, folks. If you look at what we really owe, the unfunded liabilities, it's $150 trillion, conservatively speaking. We have zero hope of paying that amount of money. It exceeds the asset value of the planet. So when the United States goes into collapse, who do you think is going to fight over her vast assets, treasures, and resources, including the human resources? North Korea just got help from Russia and China to build EMP weapons, electromagnetic pulse. An electromagnetic pulse weapon is, for all intents and purposes, a slightly modified nuclear weapon. Detonate one of those somewhere over the Midwest in the United States at about 150 to 200 miles above the ground, and the entire nation of the United States would be thrown back into pre-electricity 1850. All your fancy toys, all your fancy medical gadgets, all your fancy gear, gone. All communication, all command, gone. Who do you think is going to be banging on our western shore? And then on the other side of the fence, who do you think is going to be banging on our eastern shore? You got China to the west and Russia to the east. And you got 300 million Americans caught in the middle. If you don't think they're wargaming this stuff right now, you're hopelessly naive. Hopelessly naive. Where we stand today is at such a dangerous place for America. I mean, I'm not sure that we can escape our fate unless we as a nation stand and arise. Unless we as a nation arise and be counted. Be fearless and fierce and courageous in the restoration of our nation, back to the control of the people. Unless we are willing to speak out, even when we are shaking in fear. And even then, I'm not sure that we have the fortitude, the wisdom, and that we haven't been so indoctrinated over the last 100 years that we can save ourselves. I can only tell you this. In the event that this nation collapses into economic, which would necessarily be followed by a military junta dictatorship, which is, for all intents and purposes, my belief of where this is all headed. And it will be controlled by a man who has, for all intents and purposes, no backbone. And the wolves will move in for the kill almost immediately. We will find ourselves in a global World War III. There's a lot of people out there who have been saying this for a long time. They're always given short shrift by the media. They're classified as nutcases, tinfoil hat. Well, with all due respect, you can sit there and look at all of the evidence in front of you. And I grant you, there's no smoking gun. But you've got enough circumstantial evidence to make this a serious question for discussion. To make a serious controversy and a case out of where we are. I don't know what American people are waiting for. I suppose the only thing I can say is that for 235 years, we've had it so easy, so soft, so good, that we have become our own worst enemy. And the enemy in D.C. and in each of your state capitals, they're all capitalizing on that. You're marching into slavery. I'm reminded of the people who literally just meekly and mildly marched into these camps where the fence overhead announced where they were going. And they hoped beyond hope that it wasn't their worst fears come to reality. My goodness. The arrogance and the hubris to believe that America can't end that way is stupid. It's foolish. Our founders told us over and over and over and over and over again that tyranny would be the result of our failure to be a watchdog over our nation. That our refusal to be involved in and participatory in the daily defense of liberty and freedom would be our undoing. And as sure as the shoes on our feet, here we sit today. I don't know where that leaves us, because I and my listenership and the others out there who kind of smell the smoke, I don't know how we rouse a critical mass. I don't get it. I don't understand how we can drive the behavior of millions of Americans while there is still time to do so peacefully. Those of you who listen to the program on a routine basis, you've heard me use that quote from Winston Churchill. It's part of that story called "The Plan to Take Back America." And it's from Winston Churchill, and I've read it a number of times. I've heard people, comment on it that they understood the implications of what this is. Still, if you will not fight when you can do so and you have a chance of winning. I mean, we do have a chance to do this peacefully without bloodshed. But Americans apparently want to wait until we have to fall to the second side of this thing. The alternative. I don't get it. Still, if you will not fight for the right, when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory because it is better to perish than live as a slave. Well, with all due respect to the people out there who disagree with my position, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think we are already at the point where we cannot avoid some bloodshed, and it will already be costly. We have not fought for the right when we could easily win without bloodshed. We have not fought when our victory was sure and would not be too costly. And so we have come to the moment when we will have to fight with all the odds against us and only a precarious chance of survival. And if we don't hurry up, we will have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to, in the words of Patrick Henry, have liberty or death. I mean, realistically, folks, we have allowed this to go so far. It's like having a rabid dog. And you know the dog has got rabies, so you chain it to the tree in the hope beyond hope that it's going to survive. It's going to make it through. And as the dog descends into madness, you sit there and continuously say, in a state of denial, say, no, he's going to get better. Well, one day you're going to walk out there and the dog is going to bite you. We have allowed our leadership to become like rabid dogs. Insane. Literally. Insane behavior on their part. Their quest and their need for ego and power and money cannot be satiated. There is a true level of evil that is at the heart of that. And that's an evil that cannot be filled. That's a void, an addiction that cannot be satiated. There ain't enough. There's not enough dope to fill that need. That cloying, desperate need for more. And they will not be satisfied until American blood is spilled. Woe to this nation when that happens, because then the sharks will sense the end is near. You've been listening to America's Voice. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can also find us on our Facebook page. Please join it, like it, Help us out with that. You're also helping yourself, and you're also spreading the word to your own sphere of influence. You never know who you've got liked on, who is a friend of yours on Facebook that will hear or see a comment that we post or a story and come awake. So help yourself, help your friends. Hit the like button on Facebook. It helps us to spread the word. I don't care that, this is not some ego thing. I couldn't care less. But our goal is to spread the word. You can also find us Facebook is facebook.com/America's Voice Now, and our channel on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be right back.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Good morning. If you're just joining with us, thank you. Appreciate your attendance. We are at the middle mark of our show on Friday, November 8th, 2013. If you're just joining us, we covered two very important topics, including the president's apology for Americans losing their insurance, but no apology for his clear and obvious misrepresentation and lies with the intent to defraud America. We also touched on our second topic, how Russia and China are circling a flailing, blood-leaking America like sharks in the water. They smell the blood. And we are at risk of losing our entire nation, not only to our own internal tyrants, but to tyrants afar, who've been enriching themselves at our expense for decades now, with the help and the approval of these people in power. Our next topic, and the topic we're going to cover here, is the man-pad missiles that are flowing into Syria and the Middle East. These are the same missiles that I talked about in Benghazi, literally within a week or two of Benghazi's happening. That's what Benghazi was really about. That's why we can't get a true investigation. That's why the Department of State is hiding the names of the survivors and the victims and the people who are still in the hospital. That's why the military and the United States government are changing the names and moving and hiding people who were there and have knowledge. That is why the Department of Defense and the CIA and all the other black op agencies out there are making these people who have inside knowledge sign off on non-disclosure agreements and get polygraph tested every two weeks to a month, when according to anyone in the Spec Ops community, that happens maybe once a year, once every 2 years. But they want to know who's leaking. This was all about an illegal arms deal, an Iran-Contra type illegal arms deal. And these weapons are anti-aircraft, shoulder-fired, heat-seeking weapons. So let's just analyze that for a moment. We know that 20,000 of them disappeared. That statistically should tell you that there will not be a safe aircraft in the sky, commercial or military, civilian or government-sponsored, for the next 50 years. What does that tell you? That tells me that this is the Hegelian dialectic at work. Create a crisis. How? Well, we'll flood the Middle East with weapons. So if we flood the Middle East with weapons, we have done exactly that which we stand against in the war on terror. So the goal now is to now get the public to see the danger of these terrorists that we have to expend all of our money on and strip all your freedoms and your liberties away for, to keep you safe. That's what it's all about. And now we're seeing the results of that. Those results are literally the fact that our nation is now at risk because of these missiles, which we've allowed to get into the hands of the Free Syrian Army and Al-Qaeda and any other crackpot knucklehead that wants to go grab one. The argument out there by anybody in the military community will tell you that these weapons, they're called man-pads. They're man-portable air defense systems. And here's the biggest problem. They are the bane of counterterrorism and anti-terrorist forces because they're small, they're lightweight, they're portable. They weigh, 30 pounds? And with one, you can bring down an airliner. They're heat-seeking missiles. And they are intended to be fired from the shoulder of a guy hiding behind a bush. And they go right into the exhaust port. Wavoom, have a nice day. All they've got to do to utilize these things and meet the projections of global worldwide terror is hang around within a 10-mile circle of any airport. Any airport. The absurdity of this and the fact that these weapons are in their hands. Listen, it may not have the scope and the scale of a terrorist organization getting a nuclear weapon, but I got to tell you something. When no one's willing to get in the air and fly, because these things have been proliferated throughout the world. And mark my words, if they started in Libya and they started in the Middle East, they're being smuggled all over the world right now. And at 30 pounds and literally no longer than a fishing pole, they're not hard to move. The Pentagon itself estimated that 20,000 of these made their way out of Libya after Muammar Gaddafi was, overthrown and killed. $20,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we won't have planes safe in the air for generations. In fact, maybe never again. Not in the lifetime of anyone who is, and the progeny of anyone who is currently alive on the planet. The truth of the matter is, this is part and parcel of the overall plan, if you will. Why? Well, because government needs an enemy. All government, whether it's Russian, Chinese, U.S., all of these governments, the European Union, all of the individual countries within the European Union, they all need weapons out there, and they need an enemy. To unify the sheep in their nations so that they can point to them and say, see, it's them. That's the reason. That's why we have to take away your free speech. That's why we have to disarm you. They are the reason why we have to monitor and surveil you. That's the reason why we need to be able to know everything about you. Because with that knowledge, we can keep you safe. That's why we need more tax money. If you don't give us more tax money, we can't keep you safe. It's no different than, and this will be our next topic, but it's the same scenario. You remember, we've all watched TV enough to know that, the guy gets dragged into the interrogation room at the police station, and the two cops go in there, and we've all heard the analogy of good cop, bad cop, right? And the one cop is like, listen, we got a lot of evidence against you, and if you just talk with us, we're gonna go easy on you, and we're gonna try to help you get out of this trouble you're in. And the guy says, I ain't saying nothing. And then the other cop jumps over the table and grabs him by the shirt and shakes him and says, listen, you piece of garbage, we're gonna destroy you and your entire family. We're gonna eat your dog on Thanksgiving Day because you won't tell. Good cop, bad cop. And the perpetrator says, oh, okay, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. It was Charlie. Think of it like this. It's a little different. Two guys walk into a store, and they go up to the owner, and they say, oh, I'm Joey Bag of Donuts. And this over here, this is Bobby the Busted Leg. So we're here to get our vig, and we're here to get a free meal. And the owner says, I don't understand. Well, we're here to offer you the protection that you need. We make sure you don't get robbed and the cops don't jazz you around. And he says, but I've never been robbed, and I don't really have a problem with the police. And they're like, no, you don't understand. You need protection from us. Do you know why they call him Bobby Busted Knee? Because if you don't pay the vig, he's going to break your legs. What we have is a government that is no different than those thugs. They wear suits, they drive in limousines, they command enormous power, but their motivations, their recklessness, their willful intent, and completely willful or willingness to damage and or kill, and their lack of concern for collateral damage surrounding their actions is the same. What we have right now is exactly what Thomas Jefferson told us we would have. Two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. I'll leave you to decide which of those three characters you are. These missiles will be the bane of free people and enslaved people everywhere for generations to come. And they are the direct result of thugs in government who have been careless, could care less about the collateral damage, because ultimately they all believe that we're just really cattle to be, we're livestock. And a few of us get wiped out, it's really not a big deal. It's like a rancher who's got, 100,000 cattle. He can afford to lose a few. It's not a big deal. It's a blip on the radar screen. Mark my words, that is exactly how you are viewed. Nothing more and nothing less. And if a few airliners get shot down, hey, just gives us some fodder to go out there and convince these people to do what we tell them to do. You know what I'm saying? These missiles will be the bane of the citizens of the world for generations to come. And they have been allowed to escape out into dangerous hands, willfully, knowingly, by people who were only interested in how can I use their existence to my advantage, irrespective of the collateral damage. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your current government at work. It's not only yours, it's those overseas, it's everywhere. Look at the governments that run the world. We're the last bastion of freedom. We're the last pillar of freedom. And frankly, at this point, we've been whittled down from a sequoia to the stem of a rose. That's where we are. Anything else is all marketing. Anything else is nothing more than tomfoolery designed to get you to capitulate. To be quiet, go about your business, worry about just you and your immediate needs. And ignore the consequences of that reality. I love that quote from Ayn Rand. You've all heard me use it many times. I'll use it again. You can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequence of that reality. We can live in denial, but ultimately, there's nowhere for us to hide. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. You can find us on our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can find us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can find us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. When we come back, we'll be talking a little bit more about this issue of Thugland USA. Because that is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we find ourselves. We're being bantered about by the good cop, bad cop theory. Think NSA. Think IRS. Think Russia. Think China. Think USA. Think war on terror. We'll be right back. So we're in these dangerous places. You know, we just talked about these man pads, 20,000 of them, spreading like a wave. And you know, we're supplying the Free Syrian Army with guns and food and medical supplies and all the rest of that stuff. And our friends, and I use the term lightly, the Saudis, have been giving the moderates weapons over there, and the Russians are filling them up, and the Chinese are filling them up. You know, it's only a matter of time before this comes back and haunts us, and in a way that we're never going to be able to get around, folks. And in the meantime, you know, we're kept bantering and bickering amongst ourselves by our own government with talk about the threat of immigration. I mean, come on, folks. We're in such dire straits. We can't feed and put to work the people we've got. Why would we possibly want to let 30 million more in here and give them amnesty? And don't tell me the number's not 30 million. You're full of crap. I don't care what the number is that are here. With the plans that they have for chain migration, it will be 30 million, if not 50 million. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll give it to you at 30. Now you got John McCain huddling with President Obama on immigration. Excuse me, as I recall, John McCain ran against Obama a short time ago, but now he seems to act like his chief of staff. What the heck is up with that? They ought to have a team slogan, working to enslave the USA by treason, every day and every way. Ha ha! We find out that the CIA has been paying AT&T $10 million a year for access to all of their call data. I didn't know 30 pieces of silver was worth $10 million, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong story. That was Judas Iscariot. Shucks. We're told to worry about all of these things, jobs and taxes and unemployment. Well, meanwhile, we're being played. We're being played by a couple of gangsters, and they do the same thing. They walk in, and this is the same, the same analogy I gave you before, but it's just taken on to a different point. But the gangster says, "Hey, listen, I'm the nice gang here, but if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to send Joey Busted Knee over there, Bobby Busted Knees." Bobby Busted Knees, he's the guy who's the enforcer. Who is that today? Well, let's see. It's the NSA. It is the CIA. It is the IRS. It is the Department of Health and Human Services. It is the EPA. Don't you smell it? Don't you see it for what it is? I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's the FAA who just approved the invasion of drones into the United States. They're predicting 7,000, but they're in the process of approving 30,000 applications for drones. Guess what? The vast majority of that's going to go to law enforcement. But gee whiz, I didn't think we had that many dagnab criminals. Well, you people drive around without seatbelts. You're endangering the whole planet. My gracious. I didn't realize. But you go after some real criminals. You know, the guys who are sitting there stealing people's identity and making millions on it. Oh, I'm sorry. A lot of that is sponsored by corporate America. That's right. Forgot. You see, we are nothing more than a ball to be batted back and forth. That's all we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are a ball that is batted back and forth. We have zero control over anything. in the rare occasion when the ball is aware that it's being used as a toy, we get this sycophantic nonsense like the president. Well, I'm sorry that people are going to lose their health insurance. That wasn't our intent. I'm sorry that people are going to lose their health care and find themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me. Well, allegedly, Mr. President, you're the most powerful man on the planet. What did you think those people would do with the assurances that you gave? That's like the pastor in your church, or the rabbi in your synagogue, or the priest, or the imam, who says to you, listen, murder's okay. You go out there and you commit a murder, and then they say, well, I'm sorry that, you got the feeling that I approved and that, it was okay for you to do, but the law says it's not. So, see you in about 30. The heck? I mean, really? What did you think, Mr. President, the world was going to do, the United States? Let me reclassify that, because the rest of the world is laughing at us. And you, by the way. Because you look like the ultimate buffoon. We look like the ultimate suckers. And the world is laughing. What did you think that we were going to do with those assurances? You're a Chicago gangland thug. Nothing more. You gave us a promise that you knew was a lie. That's no different than Joey Bag of Donuts. Hey, listen, I know you're short this week. Give me half of what you owe. And, Bobby busted knee, he's not going to take you out. And the guy says, okay. He turns over half the money, and then Thug looks over at Bobby and he says, all right, Bobby, don't kill him, just hurt him a little bit. But you said I wouldn't get hurt if I gave you half. Hey, I'm sorry that you find yourself in this situation on assurances you got from me. Holy smoke. I mean, I'm sorry. You took my assurance and you believed me. That's, on you, buddy. Where our nation has fallen into is that we are Jekylls. Hegelian Jekylls. We are, all we do is go back and forth and we argue and bicker about nonsense. It's all sycophantic nonsense. It's all designed to ensure that none of us are going to rise up against the tyrant. That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I can give you ample examples. Professional sports. How else do you keep, 60 million men who are laden with testosterone, calm and cool and collected all the time? You give them something else to focus their energy and attention and rage and attention span upon. Memorizing the football scores. Hey, let's go over there and build a fantasy football team because we can't get enough on TV on Sundays. I remember the the winning hit in every World Series game since Babe Ruth. You do? You've got to be kidding me. Why? And who cares? You can't name a founding father. You couldn't quote one if somebody put a bullet at your head and threatened you and your family. You couldn't quote one. But you know the winning hitter for every ball game since Babe Ruth. Wow, that's really valuable knowledge, isn't it? Whenever governments mean to invade the rights and liberties of the people, they always attempt to destroy the militia in order to raise an army upon their ruins. That was Elbridge Gerry. So let's think about that for a moment. Let's just analyze that statement real quick, because it's actually very appropriate to this. Whenever governments mean to invade the rights and liberties of the people, they always attempt to destroy the militia in order to raise an army upon their ruins. So let's ask ourselves the question: who is the militia? Oh, well, that's all men between the ages of 16 and 60. We can stretch it a few degrees, and mostly on the latter end in a pinch. So, how do we invade the rights and liberties of the people? We destroy the militia. Who is the militia? Men, 16 to 60. How do we destroy them? Well, first of all, we make them worry about a bunch of junk that doesn't really matter. And secondarily, we take all of their attention and focus, and we point it towards something that enables them to basically just shoot blanks forever. Professional sports. NASCAR. Listen, I have no problem with any of these things in and of themselves. But I want you to recognize what they are. For those who aren't involved in the sports game, there's plenty of other distractions that are destroying our militia. Reality television shows. I mean, really. The hunting sports. What do you mean? You're going way too far there, Evans. No, the hunting sports. Because you're convinced by the National Wildlife Turkey Federation and the NRA that it's really the Second Amendment's really all about your hunting rights. Your Second Amendment is about your hunting rights for two-legged game, you dope. It's not about turkey, deer, or bear, or any other dopey four-legged creature. But America wants to just sit there in buffoonery and be made idiots out of. For some of you, it's not television and it's not professional sports. For some of you, it's cars. I spent all my time tinkering around. Man, I got the engines that run like raped apes. Well, that's where your interest lies. That's where your treasure lies. Meanwhile, you're worthless as teats on a boar hog toss. You can't tell us what the Federal Reserve is. In fact, you've probably really not heard the name before. You might have heard it once or twice in passing, and you kind of thought it was, that's some division of the Treasury that does something with the money. I don't know. That's the problem with America. Then you got a whole crew out there who, instead of standing up for their nation, are saying, I got to get to work because, man, I got to make $67,000 this month. I got to pump some of these bonds out there to a bunch of these idiots who have absolutely no idea that they just bought a bunch of toilet paper in green. And I know the end is coming, and man, I'm taking care of my family. I'm going to get that $67,000, and I'm going to make sure we buy a bunch of food for us. Let me tell you something. Your LL Bean shirt with the creases still in it that you're wearing on the first day of the financial collapse as you prepare your family to get out of Dodge. Yeah. That's the one that's going to maybe contain the blood ushering out of your body. You know what, America? You're either going to have to come to grips with the realities of what's going on around you, or you're going to have to pay a very, very painful and stupendously high price for your folly. Our militia is being destroyed. By the way, those who aren't involved in cars and sports and money and golf and the hunting sports, there's plenty of room out there for your particular little distraction. You've been emasculated. You're told, don't get angry. Resolve things with talking. Be emotional. Let your emotions rule your day. Don't go out there and be an aggressive. Non-aggression. That's the right thing to be. And it's okay to get your nails done. It's okay for you to get a wax. Waxing is good. I watched a commercial the other day about some stupid thing that for women to remove facial hair, the no yes, no, or whatever the heck it's called. And this guy is sitting there, and he's a husky young man, maybe in his mid or late 20s. It's like getting a wax, but it doesn't hurt, he says. I don't get it. Why are men turned into these effeminate, husky women? You're spending more money on hair care products than you are on preparing to take care and defend your family. We've effeminized America. There are no men anymore. The truth of the matter is, if this nation had men like our founders had men, we'd have marched on the capitals of all of the state and federal government a long, long time ago. We would have dragged everybody out. They'd all be sitting in prisons today. And a lot of them probably would have been hung for treason. Legally. I'm not advocating everybody go get a rope. Don't even go there with me. I know they're capturing these podcasts so that they can say, see, he's an evil element out there trying to raise the extremists to go out and cause violence. He's inciting it. No, I'm not. I'm just speaking the truth. Our founders, President Obama says, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And Jefferson says, if I had a son, he'd have shot you all already. I'm not advocating violence. Don't even go there with me. And if this tries to get played at a trial, here's the proof. I call for massive, peaceful civil disobedience every single day. Key operative word, peaceful. But I call for ultimate disobedience, and I call for a peaceful revolt to remove you from power. To put this nation back into the hands of Americans who have America as their first, primary, and only motivation. Not Nancy Pelosi flying around with $1 million worth of liquor and booze per month on her private jet. Not Harry Reid, who wants to make sure that he gives $100 million to the casinos in Las Vegas in the immigration bill. Pardon me. Why does $100 million going to casinos in Vegas have anything to do with immigration? I'm confused. Not John Boehner, who's willing to capitulate to whatever way the wind blows. Not John McCain, who's the chief of staff for the last tyrant in a long line of tyrants and traitors who have run the country, who, confusingly enough, ran against him only 2 elections ago, but I digress. America, you can remain asleep on your feet, or you can recognize the condition of alert that surrounds us. You're like a fat, dumb, happy American. And I don't mean that in a disconcerting way, but that's the way that the world looks at us. We're fat and soft and dumb and stupid and happy. And you go to a third world country and you think, you can stroll down the streets of some foreign, dangerous place like you're walking down Main Street. That's exactly where we are. What you don't realize is that Washington and your state capitals are all those dangerous places. They are all seeking your destruction. And all of the people, as you walk down there in your stupid little safari hat, are trying to figure out, how can I eat this idiot? Isn't it wonderful, Betty? Look at just all the local... It's just amazing to me. Look at how friendly these people look. No, that's not a look of friendliness. That's a look of hunger. And that fluid dripping off their fangs, that's saliva as they are slavering, trying to figure out, how good would he taste? But the local ambiance here is just so magnificent. I don't know. Let's go get a glass of wine. And the local people haven't eaten in a week. Had a friend of mine one time, worked for an oil company, was in Nigeria, was assigned a guy to be his guy Friday, his driver, etc., personal valet. Didn't really know the guy, had been in the country a week. The people at the office said, well, come on, we're going to go have a drink, afterwards. And he said, not knowing the rules and how that game worked, he says to his guy, well, come on in and we'll have a beer. The guy says, I can't go in. Why not? I can't go. Well, come on, we're just going to have a beer. I can't go. Why can't you go? What's the big deal? He says, because I can't go in and have a drink with you and then go home to my family because my children haven't eaten in a week. Your Honor, I rest my case. Whenever governments mean to invade the rights and liberties of the people, they always attempt to destroy the militia in order to raise an army upon their ruins. You know why I like using quotes from our founders during these shows? Because they tell us everything that we need to know. The truth speaks for itself. The truth of what they say comes on like a light bulb in a dark room. And it should be illuminating to you. And suddenly the light bulb comes on and you find you've been in the dark. You can't see anything. You can hear some noise. And suddenly, the founder's light bulb illuminates the room. And you should see the danger. That the room is full of wild animals who are hungry and pacing about. And wild and dangerous men who seek your demise. That's the real world, not some storybook land we've been living in. That's the real world. You know, John Adams said, "But a constitution of government, once changed from freedom, can never be restored. Liberty once lost is lost forever." I want you to write that down and carry it with you and look at it from time to time. Put it on the visor of your car or stick it on the top of your computer screen or stick it as a bookmark in your Bible. And then after church, walk up and show it to your pastor and give him a copy. And jot it down so that when you go out with the guys from work, you can slip one in one of their shirt pockets. But a constitution of government once changed from freedom can never be restored. Liberty once lost is lost forever. America, the choice is yours. Awaken or die. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. It's a heck of a leave on a Friday, isn't it? Hey, you know what? My job isn't to sit here and mollycoddle you. My job is to tell you, awaken or die in your bed. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/America's Voice Now, and youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Thanks for riding with us today. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that so many of you are loyal and understanding and dedicated to freedom and liberty. Thank you.